What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, December 29th, 2023. Phil, that is you.
So did you almost
As
forget
always,
my
I'm
name?
PK. I went out of order here. I was trying to say this is our final show of 2023. How does it feel to be wrapping up another year? This will be going into our fourth year, because we started in 2021. Is that right?
Well, if it's the 21, 20, like all of 21?
No, we started recording in 2021. We also did it in 2022, 2023. So 2024 is our fourth year doing it.
Something like
mark?
that.
I don't know. We'll have to look back.
Yeah, it feels good. I feel like we're a bit similar to corporations that have quarter four and quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4
fair.
aren't calendar year. I feel like that's kind of how we are. I feel like the summer is like the end of our season, and then I don't know what August, September, I would say is like Q1 for us. So I feel like it feels weird to be headed into 2024 and say like we wrapped up a year, because we're still at the middle / end. I mean, toward the end of the Bills, start of the Bandits, and middle-ish of the Sabres. So it feels weird to say like, oh, we're coming to a conclusion with this year when we're in the middle of everything. So I'm going to say weird, but exciting that we are, I don't know how we'll have to go back and look, I guess, because we seem confused if we're on year 2, 3, or 4, but it's exciting. We've been doing this for a while. We have changed a lot, I think, since we started, not only in production, but just the amount of things we've tried that have failed and we have let go, other things we have found success in and have made them more of a focus, like the Bandits of the show. And it's been fun. It's been a good ride, and thank you to all the fans that continue to listen.
Yeah, we'll do our year-end kind of sappy stuff on the next show, but I did just count. We started in, I think our first official episode was the beginning of April, and that was 2021. So April of 2021 to 2022 is 1 year. April of 2022 to 23 is year 2. So we'll be entering our third year, but it'll be the fourth year, if that makes sense. I am confusing more people than it needs to be. But yeah, we'll be entering our third full year of doing this podcast in April. It's coming up quick. So if you want to join with us, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com, where I have my Week 5 power rankings. There were some people that didn't like where I had certain teams, so if you have any interest in peeking on that, that's where you can find it. And then look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show on our website. Also, you'll get the post-game write-ups from Phil of anything we don't cover here, anything else he wants to hit more on that we don't cover on the show, or pretty much anything. Phil has that dropping on Tuesdays. My power rankings are on Thursdays. But we will start with the Bills. Phil, another must-win game, and I'm hoping this is a much different outcome than we saw last week, and especially a different outcome than we saw earlier in the season when the Bills took on the Patriots, and they lost that one on a last-second touchdown pass from Mac Jones to Mike Gesicki. I don't think I could stomach another loss to the old man Bill Belichick and his poorly run franchise right now.
That's fair.
This might be the last time you see coming here or going there. I can't remember if it's a home or a road game. Who cares? This might be the last time you see facing the Patriots with Bill Belichick on that sidelines. I have a very interesting feeling that I don't think he's going to be a member of the New England Patriots next year.
Yeah, I think this game is a little bit less of a trap game because, like you secretly just mentioned, it is a home game, so that does help.
I was right.
And
wrong.
it is must win again. I think the rivalry obviously is a little bit more interesting here than it was with the Chargers. So I think in that aspect, it's a bit less of a trap game because you're home, you're excited. So I think it's a little bit more amped up that the Bills will be, but this is a very interesting Patriots game. The last 3 games they've had, they beat the Steelers 21-18. They lost to the Chiefs, but only 27-17. I know 10 points is a lot, but it wasn't like a disgusting blowout. They were kind of hanging around, and they just beat the Broncos 26-23 on the last-second field goal, and they scored 20 points in the third quarter alone in that game. The 3 games prior to that, they had a combined 13 points. So it's a weird team, but the last 3 games, they've knocked off 2 potential playoff teams, and the Chiefs, they at least hung with them. I know the Chiefs are reeling a bit right now, but they did hang in there a bit. So they are going to be, I think, tougher than they seem on paper, given their wins and losses, but they did just beat 2 playoff teams, so I just hope the Bills don't take them too lightly. But again, I think with it being a home game, must win, and it being the Patriots AFC East, I think they're going to come ready to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to look like a different team than you saw the first go around, because different quarterback, it's Bailey Zappi now. Different running back, it's Ezekiel Elliott with Stevenson on the IR. And I don't want to overlook the Patriots, kind of like we did with the Chargers, sort of. I know you were more in the trap game than I was, and you proved to be right in that situation. The spread is 13, and I could honestly see it being closer than that, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was like a 20-point win for the Bills. I think they're ticked off of what happened earlier in the season when they lost to New England. I think they still got that sour taste in their mouth. And with the way they're playing right now, and excluding last week where the offense didn't look right at all, and it was the first real down game from Joe Brady, I'd be interested to see. This seems like a game before the Miami game where you really want to build on that Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Joe Brady connection to see if they can work out all those cobwebs. Because we've been saying it for a few episodes now, is eventually you're going to need Stephon Diggs to be that top tier number one threat on the offensive end. It's been James Cook, and he's been producing amazingly. They've gotten by without needing Stephon Diggs. Last week it was Gabe Davis who was really good in the receiving game. Kincaid's kind of gone away with Dawson Knox coming back, but Stephon Diggs is one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he hasn't played up to that, and they haven't needed him to play up to that. I think this is a game before going facing Miami for the possible the division that we're going to talk about shortly here with the playoff outlook. If they lose to Baltimore, the division's on the line next week as long as Buffalo takes care of the business here. But I think next week, if that's the case and you're still going to want to beat Miami for better seeding, you're going to need Stephon Diggs in that Miami game because you're going to need to score points. So I think this is a game where they might not look past the Patriots, but use this as a tune-up game for Miami, and I think part of that tune-up is getting Stephon Diggs more involved in the receiving game, more than just those wide receiver screens that we've been seeing nonstop.
Yeah, Diggs still has over 1,000 yards this year, so it's
Right.
not like he's not around. But like you said, I mean, I don't know how many weeks now we're going on without a 100-yard game, but it's been a very, very long time for a player of his caliber not to have a 100-yard game. So it will be interesting to see if they try to scheme up him to get open, or in general, like you said, just maybe force feed him, but not in the screen game. Find a different way to force feed him a little bit, get him closer to 8-9 targets, but something 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards downfield, not behind the line of scrimmage at his feet, where he just drops it and the player, even if he caught it, there was someone like on him pretty much every single time. The screens don't seem to work. I don't think it's anything really to do with Diggs, but he seems to drop most of them because they're thrown at his feet, and the ones he does catch, I feel like there's someone like right in his face every time. So hopefully they find a different way to scheme him in. Same with Kincaid, like you just mentioned. I think he's gone away a little bit too much, and even Knox hasn't really done much since coming back. So I feel like they just kind of negated each other.
They split a already smaller workload between the two, so neither of them are really producing whatsoever.
Right, and I feel like they both have the ability to produce, especially Kincaid with how he was doing when Knox was out. And this is what we were worried about with Knox coming back, that Kincaid would disappear. And he showed that he could arguably be the number 2 receiving threat on this team. And now he's pretty much all but gone. So hopefully they find a way to get a few different pieces more involved in this game. Like you said, use it as a tune-up, because that Dolphins game is going to be massive. And it's going to be a big test to your defense, but you're probably going to have to put up a lot of points on their defense, so you're going to need as many different ways to do it. This is a good game to test some things out without giving too much away to the Dolphins.
Yeah, it's going back to Stephon Diggs' 100-yard games. He started the first 5 of 6 games with 100 yards, and it's been 9 straight since he had 100
both of those
yards.
are crazy.
But what's weird is the targets are still there. In those 9 games, 4 of them he had double-digit targets. 2 other ones he had 8. He had a 7, then 2 5s. So it's not like they're going away from him. I think his role has just more changed under Joe Brady, because 2 times in the 5 games under Joe Brady, he has an average, yardage game in the double digits. And it was 12.3 versus Philly, where he had a very good game, 6 for 11 for 74 and a touchdown. And then the 4 for 5 for 48 yards with Dallas, where they didn't really need him because they just ran it down his throat. But it's definitely, like we keep mentioning, it should be a tune-up game to try to get Stephon Diggs back involved in this offense. Again, not that they were going away from him, but just try to get him, locked back in when you need him the following week. But Phil, I mean, there's not much more to say. They're the better team. They should beat the Patriots here. If the Patriots lose the last 2 games, I believe I read this, Bill Belichick will tie the record for the most losses as a head coach. So I'm really looking forward to that possibly happening.
That'd be nice.
And again, this could be the last time Bills face Patriots with Bill Belichick on the sidelines, which I would not hate based on the whole history between the 2 franchises and Bills getting their butts whooped by the Patriots nonstop. But playoff outlook, there's a Thursday night game that's going to be going on in about an hour from when we're recording right now. It's about 7:30 on Thursday night. Jets face off against the 10-5 Browns. You'll know before we do, but we're really rooting for the Jets here. And Amari Cooper is out. Sorry if that hurt your fantasy team after he led a victory. And I mean, Joel's in the finals because of Amari Cooper's and his 49 points, but he's out. Raiders 7-8 take on the Colts 8-7. I believe if the Raiders win, they claim a playoff spot, or at least not claim it, but they're in a playoff position. So kind of rooting for the Raiders there to knock the Colts back one more. That's Sunday at 1:00. Panthers face the Jags 8-7. Sunday at 1:00. Obviously the Panthers. This is the big one here. Another 1:00 game. So you're gonna have to flip back and forth. Miami 11-4 taking on the Ravens 12-3. Sunday at 1:00. You're rooting for the Ravens. The Bills cannot get to the number 1 seed, but they can still win the division and get a home game if Ravens defeat the Miami Dolphins. Bills beat the Patriots. Week 18 is for the division. If Miami wins versus the Ravens, that AFC East is done. The Titans face the Texans 8-7 Sunday at 1 p.m. Obviously rooting for the Titans. Steelers 8-7 facing the Seahawks Sunday 4:05. Obviously the Seahawks, and then 8-7 Bengals, 9-6 Chiefs. Sunday, 4:25. Not really sure who you're really rooting for on that one. I think you're rooting for the Bengals as long as the Bills win, just because it knocks the Chiefs back down. And the Bills, if they win the division, can jump the Chiefs. So I think that's who you're really rooting for coming up on Sunday.
I know everything last weekend worked out pretty magically other than the Dolphins, but given how we were talking just after the bye about the Bills and seeing them as the 11 seed at the time to then have, I know everything's still ridiculously log jammed. And like you said, we're not even going to really speak into existence, but if something were to happen against the Patriots, everything's still right there. But the fact that they have just now leapfrogged the entire AFC in a matter of a few weeks is just ridiculous. The outlook and how quickly it can change when all of these teams, I mean, how many teams did you just mention are 8-7? I mean, it's just insane this year how many teams are all just bunched together for that wild card position.
Yeah, it's nonstop because you still got the Indy, Houston, who are 7-8, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati are 9-10. They're all 8-7, and then you got the Raiders and the Broncos 7-8. So, I mean, it's still a logjam. And
right.
You're
Everything
sitting at 5-5 in the conference. If you lose and the Colts win, the Colts jump you. If you lose and the Texans win, Texans jump you. So you can fall all the way back. I mean, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they win, they can jump you. So it's still a must-win game.
Yeah.
And if you get some help, I know there's a bunch of tiebreakers involved in this too, but Bills can clinch a playoff spot this week, which after the Denver game where I buried them and I said this season's over, they're not making the playoffs, sitting at the 6th seed after what you just said where they were sitting in the 11th seed, it's mind-blowing. But that's what happens when you actually play the right type of football. You get defense, you get the right offense going. It's just everything is clicking at the right time. And I'm sorry for doubting you, but everything that we were seeing, we were supposed to be doubting you because it was pretty ugly. But job's not done. Take care of the Patriots. You get a very good chance to clinch playoffs this week, and really root for Miami. So you could get a 1-2 punch here at the same before 4:30. You can know if Week 18 is for the division or not, and that's a fun place to be. But we will talk about that game on Monday. We'll move forward to Phil, our final Fantasy Blitz of the year. All I can say is thank God. Last week didn't work out for me again. Shocker. I had Drake London ranked 38th going in. He finished 66th. And you had Rashee Rice ranked 26th. Finished 38th. To me, that's not really his fault. It's just the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes had a really ugly game against the Raiders.
Yeah, he had 12 targets. If you get 12 targets, usually you're looking a little bit better than wide receiver 38. Little disappointing, but, I mean, the stats were there. He just didn't quite complete it. But this week, I dropped this player last week for tight end Tucker Kraft, who did finish with 8 points, so he didn't kill me by any means. And we're doing a weird 2-week kind of, I'm not going to get into it, but this week I'm picking this player back up, and I already did spend my last 2 fab dollars I had left in the bank to pick up Chig Okonkwo, coming off his best game of the year with 6 catches on 7 targets for 63 yards and a touchdown. His first touchdown of the entire season. He's been on my team, I think, the last 4 weeks as my tight end because I had to drop Isaiah Likely in some kind of injury crunch, and that kind of bit me. But last week he had 15.3 points. This week Will Levis will likely be back for Tennessee, but they're facing Houston, who is a very beatable defense, so expect him to have another good game in a plus matchup, and he's turning into their most reliable, I would say, essentially the Kincaid role of the wide receiver 2 on Tennessee. They don't really have one right now behind Hopkins, so he seems to be their next pass catcher up, and he's doing a pretty good job coming off his best game.
Yeah, I'm just happy this segment's ending because I hate it.
I need you to do some stats for this year for you and your average finish for some of these.
Oh, I'm going to. That's built into next Friday's show when we review all this stuff. But I'm going Justin Fields, currently ranked 19th. I had such high hopes for him this year. I drafted him in the 6th round in our league, and it came back to bite me. Why? Who cares? I like I said, I don't like this segment anymore because I'm just so bad at it. Since returning, he's had 3 games over 24 points in 6-point touchdown leagues and 2 under 12. So you're really gambling here. 60% of the time he does well, 40% of the time he does bad, but he's facing Atlanta, so who knows? But I could see him running one in. I can see him throwing one in, and I don't think he's going to bust. I don't think Justin Fields, besides the one game where he left with injury, he can bust. I really don't think so. He's going to get at least 12 points, which in a finals is not good enough to get you that title, but he's not going to lose it for you, if that makes sense. He's not going to be capable of putting up like a 3 or a 4-point game with his running ability, and they're letting him run more, which should have done that from the get-go, but I really don't think he is capable of busting. I think he's a very safe pick, and I could see him finishing the top 5. But I could also see him, outside of the top 12 and me, banging my head against the wall and just thanking God this segment's over for the rest of the year and I don't have to worry about it until September.
Yeah, speaking of, just a few points from a quarterback, I have Purdy on my team after I traded Jalen Hurts because my season was over, so I wanted some keeper players for next year. So I traded Hurts away, picked up Purdy off of waivers. He's been absolutely incredible, and then he puts up 2.4 points. I could not believe it. When I was headed into that game, I was up by 20. Again, we're doing like a 2-week combined score, so thought I was going to get close to a 40-point lead headed into this week, and saw that it went literally up by like 2 points the next day. I was like, what the heck happened? Saw his brutal worst of his career stat line, and I just didn't know I could see a quarterback get. I think it was literally 2.4 points. I was like, all right, well, there's that, I guess.
Well, I do hold the record in my brother's league. It's been going on for 7 years of the lowest score for a week, and we play 6-point touchdowns. So your quarterback can easily put up like 20, 25 points on a good, a decent week. I scored like 46 points total one year. And then the following week, I scored the highest over like 200 points. So I hold the record for the most points in the league in 1 week and the lowest. And it all happened in a 2-week span. So, yeah. fantasy's stupid sometimes, Phil. Or it's just stupid. Like if CMC didn't go off in round 1 of the playoffs, I'd be sitting in the finals right now. It's stupid. I hate it so much, and I'm so happy that after this week, it's over and I don't have to think about it for a while because I need a break. I definitely need a break. So we will move on, and we'll go over the Fantasy Blitz finale on next show, but we won't be picking any players because if you're playing in Week 18, your league sucks. Haha. So we'll move on to the Buffalo Sabres. Another thing that sucks, Wednesday versus Boston. After their holiday break, they lost 4-1. Eric Johnson was your only goal scorer. Levi, 21 of 25 saves. Shots were 26-25 in favor of Buffalo. That's the only thing they won in this this matchup. Phil, what's your reaction?
That's exactly what we expected.
Yep.
The biggest thing that stands out to me in this game, well, not the biggest, I guess, as far as wanting to give someone credit, I thought Levi actually played really, really well in this game. I think if you look at just the box score, see 21-25 and 4 goals, it doesn't really reflect how well he played. He had a lot of monster saves trying to keep this team in it, and a few of the goals were not only were 3 on the power play, which doesn't help him, but I think 2 of them were, one was off the defender and one went off the end boards and then like shot back out and pretty much I think went off him and in. So 2 of them I don't really think were on him at all in general. It was just a rough game. I think there was only one where he had a big save, then he let the rebound in, but I thought he played much better than the 4-1 score appears. So as far as any player on this team, I thought Levi actually had a pretty good game. Outside of that, Dahlin led the team in shots with 5, followed by Quinn with 4. Dahlin did make a pretty sweet kick save toward the to the empty netter. That, I mean, it showed that his effort was still there, not allowing Boston to get 5 goals. But other than that, they were terrible. And I really thought even the shots were close, but I thought the opportunities for Buffalo, even though the shots were close, really just weren't anything great. They had maybe 3 or 4 quality chances. Outside of that, I didn't really think they did all that much, and it was a mediocre team playing against one of the best teams in the league, and finally they looked like it other than playing up to the top talent in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it breaks down to 2 numbers here. Boston went 3 for 4 on their power plays. Buffalo went 0 for 6. It's as simple as that. And I think I think we finally saw. Yeah, 0 for 6. Thank you.
No, that's what you said. It's just like you had 6 opportunities.
You're just emphasizing how bad it was. Yeah, 0 for 6. Yeah. And I've been known to screw up numbers, so I thought I just screwed that one up. But I think Matt Ellis is the one that runs the power play, and I don't know why, but they're sitting at, what is this, 14, 18, and 4. So they're 36 games in, and Mr. Donnie Meatballs now. You haven't heard him be called that in a while because they're not having fun this year and nobody's having fun. He finally said, oh, yeah, I'll be more involved in the power play. I think that needs to be improved. What is going on? What is going on with this team? I mean, he keeps Dahlin and Samuelson together. That pairing's now working well, whether you're looking at it on the ice or the analytics, who he doesn't believe anymore. I don't understand what is happening with this organization. And it's like I shouldn't be shocked anymore, and I'm not trying to get worked up over it. But this is what's funny, Phil. On Thursday, today, when we're recording, they just waived their top centerman from Wednesday's game. Tyson Jost got put on waivers. He was your top centerman in Wednesday's game. What is going... And that was used. They put him at the top line center because Granato thought that lines 2 and 3 were working well. What is working well with the Buffalo Sabres that you can't break up a line? What? I can't. Yeah. I told myself I wasn't going to get worked up about this.
Here you are.
Here I am. 20 block shots for Boston. 10 for Buffalo. Now, this only tells a part of the story, but when you're just looking at that number, you know what that tells me? That tells me that they're afraid to go inside because typically when you're inside in front of the net, those shots don't get blocked. You know what shots do get blocked? When you're shooting from the point and the outside all the time. This team is just so discombobulated. I don't know what happened to them saying, like, last week when they said, oh, yeah, we just changed up our style after the Toronto game where we went, okay, this is a nice win, but stack some wins, and they didn't do that. But they were like, we're going to go back to the style of play that we had last year. And what happened? Where'd it go?
Not only that, why didn't you start with that this year.
Yeah.
Why would
What
you
happened?
why would you go away from something that made you a top 5 scoring offense in the entire league?
I've just
No, we're going to switch away from that.
It's December 29th and this team is dead and buried. Like, unless they go on like an 8-game winning streak,
Which we have yet to see any
which we have yet to
resemblance
see
of
them
at all.
get more than 2 in a row.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to make all these jumps. Like, they signed, they brought back Riley Stillman. They brought back Jacob Bryson. They re-signed Tyson Jost. Guess what? That's like $5 million playing in your AHL right now. It's just, I don't understand this franchise. I'm not even saying it's cursed. It's just incompetence. And I don't know. I don't want to cover this team for the next 4 months. Like, I really don't. They're not fun to watch even. Like last year, even when they were, even in that big losing streak, they were still at least a little fun to watch. It's just they're not even scoring anymore. Like, take out the 9-3 win versus Montreal, the Maple Leafs. I mean, come on. It's stack some wins. And even when you do, you're so far down in the standings, Phil. There's so many teams you're going to have to jump. I don't know how they're not even on pace for a 90-point season. I don't know. Take it away if you got anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned last episode, their schedule coming up, they have a lot of winnable games. They got the Senators twice, you got the Canadiens, you got the Blue Jackets again. Penguins are at the bottom. They're still over 500, but they're pretty much hovering around 500. The Kraken are doing okay. Then you got the Canucks, the Sharks, and the really terrible Blackhawks. So they have a stretch of winnable games. I mean, 3 would be nice in a row. I mean, literally, you have the Blue Jackets, Senators, and Canadiens for your next 3. All easily winnable games if you consider yourself at all in playoff contention down the road. So you absolutely need a 3-game win streak for the next 3 games. I know one of those is back-to-back, and I'm sure we will see that as some kind of excuse, but you got to win. You got to win more than 2 games in a row all season. Once we said they've done that. So yeah, they're bad until they can string some wins together or do anything at all. They're I don't know. They're tough to talk about, and really deflating is really all it comes down to. I mean, again, they were so close last year. You expected some kind of excitement this year and just continuity from last year, and we're going to be closer to playoffs. We're going to be in it the whole time, and this is just not what you expected, hoping for, and here we are, just kind of sad again.
Yeah, just real quick, because who really cares? Wild card spots, Carolina and Washington hold it. Carolina's 40 points, 35 games played. Washington is in the second seed, 39 points, 32 games played. So they got 4 games in hand over the Sabres. Then it's Lightning, 39 points, 36 games. Devils, 38 points, 33 games played. Pittsburgh, 36 points, 33 games played. Detroit, 36 points, 35 games played. Montreal, 35 points, 33 games played. So even looking ahead, you're 7 points out of a playoff spot, but the team that currently holds that has 4 games in hand. The only team ahead of you right now that has the same amount of games played as you is Tampa Bay, who is 7 points up on you. And then Montreal, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey all have at least, Detroit has 1 game in hand, and then the other 3 have 3 games in hand. So even if you want to say, oh yeah, we can make up some ground here, you can't, because there's so many teams that still have games in hand. It's just, this team is a flat out joke now.
Okay, so
I don't know what else to say.
Before we move on,
yeah, go ahead.
just kind of for fun, just because these 2 numbers just blew my mind in the Western Conference. But I was looking at the Sabres goal differential in the Eastern Conference. So they are at -18, which is obviously not good. In the Eastern Conference, they are second last. The worst is the Blue Jackets, who they're about to play, at -21. The Western Conference,
they've also lost against.
Right. The goal differential for the Blue Jackets is only at -21 because they crushed the Sabres. And then the Western Conference, so there's, is it the East? There was one more in the East that was interesting. So the Islanders are 16-9, and they actually have a -11 goal differential, which is insane. I know that's how they play, very defensive in these 2-1 kind of games, so their goal differential is never going to be very high, but the fact that they're negative and number 2 in their division and are 16-9 is crazy. But in the West, can you guess the Blackhawks goal differential?
-36.
Okay, so the Blackhawks are -42.
Nice.
And can you guess the Sharks' goal differential?
I think theirs is worse because they're tanking beyond belief. Minus 56.
Minus 71.
Holy crap.
Like, if you're watching on YouTube,
But at
I
least
was
they
going
have a
through...
game plan. Like, at least we
Right.
know what they were going to be. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I was just going through the stats while you were talking, and I got to negative 42. I was like, okay, that's really bad. I saw 71. I was like, oh my goodness.
I don't want to. I'm still gonna petition our bosses, and we're our own bosses, but I'm gonna petition us to drop the Sabres from coverage until they're good, because this is
We're
just
pretty close
gross,
to
and
it.
I don't want to talk about it.
We'll
Just
say how they did, and then just be like, all right, and moving on.
Yeah, that's their segment. Congrats, Sabres. Same stuff, different day. Let's talk about a fun team.
All right.
We'll move on to our final segment. Bandits versus Swarm. Buffalo coming in 1-1. Swarm coming in 2-1. Buffalo is sitting 2 games in, 12.5 goals for, which is good for 6th in the league. And Georgia's sitting just ahead of them in 5th at 12.67 goals for. Goals against, Buffalo is tied for 11th best at 13 against. Georgia's 11 against, which is tied for 5th. So, small sample size, but here is how Georgia's season's gone so far. I know we've kind of gone over the NLL outlook, and we've kind of talked about the games after on the Monday shows, but kind of digging a little bit deeper into it. They won 16-10 week 1 versus Colorado. Week 2, well, no, I shouldn't say week 2. Their second game, 15-7 loss in Vancouver, and then 15-8 win last week in Colorado. So they have 2 wins over Colorado, a loss to Vancouver. This team, when they're on, is one of the best offensive units in the league. When they're off, you saw what happened with 7 goals. So there's a lot of offensive talent here that we're going to be talking about, but Georgia so far, early into the season, they're correcting the mistakes that happened last year where saw them start 0-7. They've already got 2 wins on the year. This is my team that I picked to grab that 8th spot in the playoffs. They can be a very dangerous team coming into town.
Yeah, we saw them at the end of last year. They were a very high-scoring team toward the end of the year. They were one of the best in the entire league in scoring, and they've continued that into this year. Like you said, 2 of the 3 games are over 15 goals, 15 and 16. I mean, that's not like you're having okay wins where your offense is putting up 12, 13, which is probably close-ish to league average, but you're putting up 15 and 16 in your 2 wins and then only 7 in your 1 loss. So that's the tough thing about early sample sizes is you got 16, 7, and 15, so a little bit all over. But like you said, when their offense is on, they've been on. They're very fast. That's definitely the thing I noticed the most about their offense. They do a lot of passing. Lyle Thompson is ridiculous, and he's going to be incredibly hard to cover. It's going to be interesting to see in the Bandits who they decide to kind of shadow him. I assume that seems to be what they do when one team has a true number 1 player. They seem to like to shadow, and we mentioned that Solver was doing a pretty good job shadowing so far in his career. So if he gets the start in this one, it'll be interesting to see if they try to have him shadow. But watching a lot of their highlights, watching Lyle Thompson do what he does, he's just so fast, and he's going to get his. So it's the big thing is just trying to limit what he can be able to get. But for the most part, their offense is very fast, very talented, and it's going to be tough for a Bandits defense that is as banged up as they currently are.
Yeah, just mentioning that real quick before we get into the players to watch. When you were talking about Solver, it made me remember Emerson Clark. He was on the evaluation list. He's moved up to the active list. Sam LaRue got put back down to the practice squad. It'll be interesting to see if Emerson Clark gets an opportunity this coming week, or if they're going to use another week, he be the healthy scratch, and you see Carter McKenzie again. I think it'll be between Carter McKenzie and Emerson Clark, depending on how they want to roll out. I think, Steve Orelman will be the other healthy scratch because they're still carrying 3 goalies in the meantime. But with the Justin Robinson injury, which we haven't gotten any more news about, check the injury report. We'll post that on, I think they put it out around like 2:00 on Fridays, so we'll put that out. But definitely keep an eye on, any news on Justin Robinson. But he was a clear out last week, and I'm assuming he's probably going to be a clear out this week. You're probably going to see him be questionable on his way back, miss one more week, and then back for good. Again, just just a
Speculation.
thought in my head. Nothing concrete on that, but players to watch for. We'll start with the forwards, the lefties. I mean, these names are pretty obvious. There's like a core four that you're really going to watch for, and then another guy who's having a very good season, but the majority of his points have come versus the Colorado Mammoth in the two games. But the lefty, Shane Jackson, number 32, he's got 5-9-14 on the year, 2-1-3 on the power play. Andrew Q, who had a really, really good year last year in his first year with Georgia, coming over from Albany, number 42, 3-11-4, 19 loose balls, and he's got 3 assists on the power play. And for the righties, the main righties, Brendan Bomberry is one of them. Number 21, 5-4-9, 10 loose balls. And then the man, the myth, the legend, Lyle Thompson, number 4, 8-10-18, 15 loose balls, two goals on the power play. Sorry. And then Seth Oakes, he's a name that you don't want to miss. He's an older guy, but finally found a spot with the Georgia Swarm that he's kind of excelling in. Number 66, 7 goals on the year, 4 assists, 11 points, but all 7 goals have come in the Colorado matchups. He did not score in the Vancouver game, which, only 7 goals. Not shocking that he did not see one of those, but really it's the core 4 that you're going to have to watch out for, and it's 2-2 with the righties and the lefties.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing. I mean, it's obviously how a team wants to develop their team.
Right.
They want if like you said, a core 4 is pretty solid for an NLL offense, and then to have 2-2 is huge. Obviously, you don't want like a 3-1 system, but that's sometimes just kind of how things develop. So to see them have such a balanced offensive righty and lefty attack is not great. And the fact that Q and more importantly Shane Jackson only has 5 goals in 3 games and 2 on the power play, I could really see him start to get going at some point. It seems to me that he's having a little bit of a slow start, knowing what he can do. I mean, he's not doing bad, but 5 goals for him in 3 games, especially, again, 2 on the power play, so only 3 even-strength goals. It seems pretty unlike him. And even Q, I mean, again, he's a little bit more of an assist guy, but 3 goals. And then Bomberry's having a great season, and Lyle Thompson is exactly who you expect Lyle Thompson to be. He's incredible. So those 4, absolutely lethal. And then, like you said, they have a little bit better of a supporting cast with Seth Oakes having a bit of a coming out this year for him. And then a few of those other guys who can still put the ball in when they need to, especially when you're putting up 15 and 16 goals. It's not just going to be a core 4. It's going to be spread out amongst everybody a little bit.
Yeah, just so you remember their names, too, in case they score and you're like, oh, you didn't talk about it. Zach Miller and Brady Kiernan, they're also lefties, so they're going to relieve and give Shane Jackson and Andrew Q a couple breaks. So just a couple more names to keep an eye on for. But the biggest thing that I noticed, because I'm watching all these games, try to keep up with the league with these unified standings, is last week versus Colorado, the biggest thing that got to Colorado and they weren't able to match up with it, they were over pursuing Lyle Thompson, which of course you're gonna do, but whenever he's one of those ones that, hey, if one of my other guys is open, I'm going to pass it to him. And that's a big reason why Seth Oakes had 4 goals last week, because they were just over pursuing. They were not switching off on Lyle Thompson. He was just dishing to Seth Oakes, and he was putting the ball past Dylan Ward. So that's a big thing. And that's why I think the communication on defense is going to be so big for the Buffalo Bandits in this game, because with a guy like Lyle Thompson, the name just alone is going to strike fear into some defenders. But if your communication on the switch off of the picks and, talking when the picks are coming, if that's not on point, this offense can destroy you. So this defense and Matt Vince directing and everything, even after a goal, that communication between Matt Vince and the players out on the field there, that's going to be so critical in a game like this, because their pick and rolls are so elite so far in this season, at least against Colorado. They weren't able to maximize it against Vancouver, but at least against Colorado, that was one thing that I noticed, as well as the transition game, which we're about to get into. But that pick and roll game, that the defense for Buffalo Bandits have to really be on, and they're going to get tested in this one.
Yeah, it's kind of the negative with the sample size, again, is that 2 of the games have been against Colorado, so it's tough to say. But in the 3 games, I had them with 20 goals that were right around the crease in tight, whether it's from exactly what you just mentioned, pick and roll, quick passes, Lyle Thompson just burning somebody and getting a nice crease dive. But they had 20 goals in tight, about 9 from the mid-range, and then 10 far goals, with 5 of those coming against Colorado in the last game. I think you said it was Ward's first game of the year.
Yes.
So he might have just been simply shaky. Some of those were pretty far out. So, I mean, the 5 far goals are probably not going to stay up. And then to transition, they had, from what I can see, about 5 transition goals total in the 3 games, and 4 of those came against Colorado last week. So, again, the sample size is kind of weird because you played Colorado twice, which doesn't give you a great team by team sample size. The one time they didn't play Colorado, they didn't do very well. So it's kind of tough to know which Georgia's coming in with only 3 games to look at, 2 against the same team, but they do have transition game. And again, 4 goals last week against Colorado in transition is something you definitely have to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, Brian Cole, he's one of the transition players, number 55. He had a very good season last year, but they're relying on him to play a more defensive transition role than staying out on the floor, being a forward this year. 1, 2, and 3 on this young season so far, 14 loose balls, 2 caused turnovers. Jordan McIntosh, a guy that I was mentioning in the offseason that the Bandits are trade for, the captain of the team, number 24, 2, 7, and 9, 23 loose balls, 5 caused turnovers, and 2 block shots. And then their face-off man, Jeremy Thompson, number 74, Lyle Thompson's brother, 1, 1, and 2, 23 loose balls, 1 caused turnover, and 41% face-off percentage. So he'll likely be going against a combination of Buffalo Bandits. But those 3 guys can definitely get up the floor and put the ball in the net. And like you mentioned, 4 transition goals last week. Whether you want to blame Dylan Ward being a bit rusty in his first game back or not, these players can get up, and if you're not careful, which they were last year, Buffalo was very well, and they fixed that part of their game last year. Their transition game, if you're able to stifle their offense, can keep them in it, and you don't want to keep teams like this hanging around because they can make you pay.
Yeah, and regardless of Dylan Ward, I mean, transition is big because that means your defense obviously isn't on the floor just yet. I mean, transition goals are often either 2-on-1, 1-on-0. I mean, they're often some kind of fast break type goal. So whether Dylan Ward was at the top of his game or not, those are very tough situations to account for as a goalie because that player's likely getting in tight. I think one of them was pretty far out, but they still made some great passes before the player was able to get over there. So, I mean, it was tough situation for Ward, but I mean, transition goals are always going to give the offensive side a little bit more of a unique situation and more of an advantage in those kind of offensive situations because it's usually, again, a fast break of some sort. So whether Ward was a little off or not, 4 goals is still something you have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for the D-men, there's 2 here really to keep an eye on. TJ Camizio, defenseman, number 91, 1 assist on the year, 24 loose balls, but 6 caused turnovers. And then Adam Weidman, he's number 27, 1, 3, 4, 16 loose balls, and 5 block shots. So those are the 2 main guys back on the back end, along with the rest of them. But I don't want to name their whole roster on this preview show. But those are 2 main guys that the Buffalo Bandits forwards are going to have to deal with on the back end.
Yeah, Wiedemann, I think he had a really, his 1 goal, I'm pretty sure was a highlight reel transition style goal where
I think so too.
Took it himself and took it all the way down and had a ridiculous goal. So again, a player you got to keep an eye out for. And Camizio, I think, is someone that you and I were looking into possibly in the offseason, his defense. I don't know
his
name.
Yeah, his name came up. I can't remember why, but his name definitely came up.
The name's super familiar, and I thought we were trying to possibly have him as an option for here. So another player you definitely have to look out for. Like you said, 24 loose balls, but 6 caused turnovers, which is a massive stat to us, and he is doing a great job. I mean, 3 games, 6 caused turnovers, definitely not bad considering a lot of players end up with, 20 to 30 is a really good season across 18 games, so he's off to a good start.
Yeah, he's on pace for, 36, if I'm doing the math right?
Pretty solid.
So, bada bing, bada boom. Goldie. I know this one kind of hurts because, 2 years ago when he was drafted, this was a player that you really had your eyes on to kind of be the heir apparent to when Matt Vince hangs it up. Brett Dobson, a PLL champion, made the last second save in the PLL championship to walk out the door victorious along with Cam Wires. I believe they play with the Archers in the PLL, so they're on the same team. 2-1, 11.29 goals against and 78 save percentage. Phil, I don't think I brought it up last show when we were reviewing these games because I don't know how I blanked on this. Did you see the save he made in that game? It was a SportsCenter game.
I did.
It was
the double save.
Yeah, holy crap! He was on the ground on his butt and just leaped up, threw his arms up in the air, and made that save. It was unbelievable. One of the best saves you'll see all season.
Yeah, and for him, I had, again, this is going to be kind of obvious, but it's something that I like keeping an eye on just to see kind of where they're allowing goals. He had 16 goals in tight. Those are difficult for any NLL goalie, whether you're playing really well or poorly. In tight goals are very difficult to save. 10 from the mid-range and 7 that were kind of far out. I think the best way to attack this defense and Dobson seems to be the pick and roll. It seems to be something that works really well against them. I hope the Bandits kind of, especially Dane and Tehoka, who have done it really well, that left side with Cloutier and Byrne, I think they can pull it off really well, and McCulley over there as well. I think they can do a good job of the pick and roll, so I think it's something that the Bandits are going to have to try to look to exploit, because I think it does work on their defense, and once you're inside, that is the way to get to Dobson. He does not seem to allow too many far out goals, which the Bandits like to kind of settle for at times, so hopefully they are working really hard and finding a way to get inside. That seems to be the best way to beat him, and usually most goalies, but he does not seem to have too much of a tendency, similar to Jameson, where he's not going to allow too many of those far out shots to sneak by him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a giant goalie too, so
and he's real good.
That helps. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping that through 2 games you're seeing what Josh Byrne is capable of in this offense. I'm hoping that he is able to use that to his advantage, because you saw it in the San Diego game where he's drawing the 2 defenders to him, and then Kluch is wide open in front of the net, or McCulley's in front of the net, or Brandon Robinson, who volunteered to play defense last week. It'll be interesting to see if he's back on the back end again in that transition role, or if he's back in the forward group. I know he volunteered and he called Johnny T to say, hey, if you need me on the back end, I'll play that. I'm kind of hoping that they stick him in that transition role, because having a forward of his capabilities running up the field in that transition role, I think it adds more to the team if he's able to do that again than having the other side with Byrne, Kluch, McCulley, and then adding another Dylan Robinson to do it. It's kind of like the other side with the righties, where it's Dane Smith, it's Buchanan, it's Frazier. You can't really get in a groove with 8 forwards, in my opinion.
Right.
So I think having the 7 rotation and then having Brandon Robinson come out of the back end if he's willing to do it again, I think that's the best recipe for success, at least early on in the season, with so many healthy bodies, which is shocking compared to last year. I know I'm complaining about healthy bodies, but yeah, I think if they're able to use that pick and roll to their advantage and drawing players to the Dane Smiths, to the Josh Byrnes, and getting that wide open opportunity in front of the net, I think that's your best way for success. And the Bandits have been known to rely too much on their outside shots rather than get to the middle. That's been a sticking point for us for, this is the 3rd season we're covering the team. So hopefully they don't go away from that and, stick to what their plan was, where it's just like, get inside, get to the dirty areas, get one of those Nana Coke ones where, people are checking him in the face and he's still not letting go of the ball. We need one of those to get the crowd hyped up in this game. And I really think, and we're going to give our predictions here in just a second, I think this, as good as the Swarm have been in their offense, I think this is a very good test for the Buffalo Bandits with the start of the, bulk of the season coming up. You've played 2, you've rested for 2 weeks. Now you're in the stretch of your season, and this is a very good test to get it going.
That's actually one of the things that concerns me the most with this team, is that they, like you just mentioned, have played 2. We've also rested 2, with Georgia being one of the few teams that ended up playing last week, and Dobson got Player of the Week last week for his performance as well. So they're coming into this game pretty hot off of a big win against Colorado again. And with the Bandits taking the week off, it's going to be interesting to see how this game kind of starts. You'd expect a situation like this. I know it's home for Buffalo, which is huge, but I think you'd expect a situation like this for Georgia to get off to a bit of a quick start, because they just played last week. They're a little bit, fresher is the wrong word, because the Bandits are the team that's rested, but they're a little bit more in the groove than the Bandits are right now, having only played 2, rested 2. It's hard to get into a big groove if you're the Bandits this early in the season. I mean, Johnny mentioned it last year, where they kept having the long breaks and they just, were struggling to get in a groove because you just did not play enough games in a row. And this is kind of how they're starting again. Luckily, they're starting okay at 1-1. This is going to be a big game, but Georgia's coming in off of a big game, off of a big win, and they're ready to go. And Buffalo is coming off of a break. So I think the beginning of this game is going to be interesting, especially with Buffalo being a team that doesn't often start that hot, which is fine because their third quarter has been ridiculous, and then they just kind of settle into the fourth and win. But I think if the Bandits can keep it close in the first half, that's pretty much, I think, what you're kind of hoping for the Bandits, because I think Georgia's going to come out really quick, really ready, and I think the Bandits are going to kind of have to weather the storm going into the first half and then do what they always do, which is come out big in the third.
So, Phil, went over the players, gave our thoughts on the possibilities of the game and what we think they need to do. What is your score prediction for game 3 for the Buffalo Bandits season versus Georgia at home to either go 2-1 or 1-2?
I think it'll be close. I honestly think it'll be a close game because, again, I think you and I both agree Georgia is a bit of a scary team this year. They're finding it out, and Dobson is stepping up already. I know 2 games against Colorado doesn't give us a great sample size because Colorado seems to be struggling early once again, but I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going 12-10 victory for Buffalo.
So I counted up before I did this to kind of help my prediction. They scored this number 5 times last year.
Okay.
And it was all victories when they did it. So I have them 13-12 victory over Georgia.
Real tight. We usually don't do
real tight
1-goal games, I feel like.
I had it last week, 12-11.
Maybe I never do
last
1-goal
time,
games. I always expect there's going to be some kind of empty netter in there.
You always do, but I can't remember the last empty net of the Buffalo Bandits.
It's been a while. Usually, once they get down to that area, they just kill the clock and let the goalie run back on. So, I don't know. I'm always expecting. It's like tennis. You got to win by 2, or not tennis. I was thinking ping pong. I was thinking ping pong, volleyball.
Yeah.
You got to win by
rally.
2.
Yep.
I know I will say make that rule adjustment. You got to win by 2.
Oh, these games would go on forever. Yeah, I wouldn't hate it, but covering a whole league, and this week we got 7 games in 3 days. It would be a long weekend. But Phil, it is everybody's favorite time except for me. It's the milestone segment of the show. Here are the possible milestones that could happen Friday night for the Buffalo Bandits in Banditland. Chase Frazier is 4 goals away from 100 for his career. He averages 1.69 for his career. Steve Priolo is still 1 point away. Come on, Steve. Get it going so I can cross this off. For 200 for his career, he averages .99 points for his career. Tehoka Nanticoke is 4 points away from 100 for his career. He averages 2.91 a game for his career. Nick Weiss is 2 penalty minutes away from 200 for his career. He averages 1.55 a game for his career. Josh Byrne is 7 shots away from 600 for his career. He averages 8.12 a game for his career. Nick Weiss, if he plays on Friday, will move into sole possession of 9th place in games played for the Buffalo Bandits. Chase Frazier is 1 goal away from sole possession of 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history, and he's 3 goals away from tying Sean Williams for 9th. Josh Byrne is 3 points away from passing Micah Kersey for 4th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 5.04 a game for his career. Ian McKay is 1 block shot away from tying Ethan O'Connor for 3rd place in Buffalo Bandits history. Chase Frazier is 9 face-off attempts away from 9th place in Buffalo Bandits history. Matt Vince is 11 saves away from passing Steve Dietrich for 2nd place in all Buffalo Bandits history. And the last one, Dane Smith, is 5 assists away from tying Gavin Prout for 10th place in NLL history. He averages 3.78 a game for his career.
I didn't know you were going to throw averages in there now. I feel like that's new.
I'm adjusting. I'm getting better now that I'm not stuttering and I'm flying through these. I was like, let's add a little bit more creativity to this segment. Everybody loves it.
You did mention one thing interesting in there, and that is face-offs. We didn't really touch on it at all this episode. Just for fun, to throw it out there, last week, Colorado Mammoth won 21 of 27 face-offs. Georgia only won 6 of the 27, and Georgia won by 7 goals. So we don't really need to talk about face-offs. Hopefully it's Ian McKay, and they don't matter.
Yep, that's kind of on track for what we've been saying. It's nice to have that in your back pocket, but face-offs matter in certain situations, and I'm still on record. I've watched every game. Face-offs have played a big role in a game one time, and it was game 1 of the NLL season with Jake Withers. Hasn't really come into effect whatsoever. And again, I'm a big proponent of good face-off men, as long as they can also play defense. Because, TD Erlin,
whatever.
TD Ierlan's got like an 88 win percentage in faceoffs, but the abilities of him playing on the back end and staying on the floor, it's not really just like a one. He's not really taking up a roster spot from anybody, and that's no shot at anybody that's just a straight up Fogo, because those do have, they have value on teams, but it's just in overtime. When you need that faceoff, that's when a faceoff matters to get that first opportunity. It's when you're down one with 30 seconds to go and you need to win that. There's opportunities when faceoffs truly matter that you need to have it, but there's other times in the games, like you just mentioned, where Colorado gets blown. They blow Georgia out of the water in the faceoff dot, and the score doesn't reflect it. So they matter when they do, and they're very important when you need them, but a lot of times they're just another part, another aspect of the game, at least according to this podcast.
Yeah, even in that game, just another sample. The shots on goal, like a lot of people say, well, that's 21 extra opportunities for Colorado. Okay, well, Colorado outshot Georgia by 50-51. So in those 21 extra opportunities, they were able to get one bonus shot compared to Georgia. So, like you said, overtime, end of games, there are definitely crucial situations where you would like to have an elite face-off guy who can go out there, win you the ball because you need it. But throughout the game in general, we just don't really believe it seems to have much value.
Come at us. Bring it on.
Cause turnovers, on the other hand, fantastic.
Yep. That's what we love. That's what we love to see. So, Phil, last part here for the NLL lacrosse look around. We got, like I mentioned, 14 of the 15 teams are in action. There's 7 games spanning 3 days. My weekend is toast.
I think the 15th team should just do a A-B scrimmage just so we have all 15 teams in action.
I'd rather not, because it's going to be already rough watching these amount of games. I'm excited, but there's going to be a lot of action. Philly versus Halifax Friday at 6:30, an hour before the Buffalo Bandits face off. The late game on Friday, Rochester is traveling to San Diego, 10 o'clock East Coast. So Saturday, we got a rare 4 o'clock game. I'm excited to watch this one because it is 4 o'clock, and you rarely ever see 4 o'clock games. I think last 2 weeks ago you saw a 1 o'clock game, but these different times, I love them. I absolutely love them, so they're not all crowded in the middle of the night. But that's New York and Toronto. Las Vegas heads to Calgary Saturday at 9 p.m. Vancouver heads to Colorado Saturday at 9 p.m. And then the Sunday night New Year's Eve game at 8 p.m. Albany facing Saskatchewan. Phil, any major thoughts on this one as we are approaching the close to our show?
Yeah, I think the Philly-Halifax game is going to be good. I think Halifax 2-0, they're looking pretty solid to the start. I know a lot of people have faith in Philly, but now with their offensive injuries, I think they're going to be struggling a little bit. Rochester-San Diego, that is a battle at the top. I know San Diego just got beat by the Bandits, but Rochester's 3-0. It's going to be on the West Coast in San Diego. They're going to be looking for a big bounce back against Rochester, so that'll be interesting. I would love to say the New York-Toronto game is going to be interesting, but I expect Toronto to take care of business pretty simply. And then the Albany-Saskatchewan game, Albany 3-0 at the top of the league with Rochester. That's going to be interesting. Saskatchewan is 1-2, but they do have a positive goal differential. They've had a little bit of a hot and cold start to their season, so I think that one's going to be good too. Also on the West Coast for Albany, so another big travel game for them.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's very injured. Halifax, their offense is looking really good. Rochester, San Diego, I think that's going to be one of the better matchups because both teams are very, very good, and their offenses are very, very good. I think Reed agrees with me as he's barking in the background. Toronto, I think that's no match for New York. Calgary, I'm looking to see them get back, in the win start to get in the win column. They're 0-2 right now versus Vegas. Colorado, they're looking for their first win too, but it'll be very interesting. I think I picked them in the BSC pick'em, but this is what got me a lot of hate. Albany, I got them ranked 8th in my power rankings. Go read why. Everybody that's been complaining, they didn't actually read why I have them ranked 8th. But I think if Saskatchewan gets a good Frank Ciliano, I think they can take down Albany. The biggest thing that I have against Albany, and I know I don't want to go on too big of a rant here, is I like their offense. I've been on record multiple times to say I like their offense. But now there's 3 games of tape on the young guys. It'll be interesting to see if they can make the adjustments to the adjustments. And again, it's 3 games in. It's not. My power ranking. I'm trying not to go on a rant here, Phil, because
You're ranting.
People. I am. People go on their own things. But if you want my power rankings to reflect the standings, it's not gonna happen. That's not what power rankings are. Yes, they're 3-0, but it's more about the quality of wins as well. That's a part of it. Like 3-0, that's a part of it. But the quality of wins when you took down Vegas and a very injured Philadelphia team, you have one quality win in my book. If you can take down Saskatchewan with their offense, I think that'll be quality win number 2, and you'll see them rise in the standings. So still a very young team that I have very high hopes for. They're exceeding expectations for me. But power rankings, they're going to vary. I accidentally caused a hot take, apparently, which I wasn't intentionally doing. I'm not a hot take kind of guy, even though I had like my Hot Corner Fridays last year, which we did away with. Like you mentioned at the start of the show, some things just died off. That was one of them. But yeah, I like Albany, but I have Saskatchewan winning that game. And for everybody that hates Albany ranked number 8, God, I hope the Rush blow the doors off the Firewolves. Because if the Firewolves blow the doors off the Rush, I am hiding in a bunker all weekend.
And we've just mentioned it a ton with the Bandits breakdown, with it being so early in the season still. Last year's records and what how you feel about the team from last year still kind of carries over into this year.
Yep.
To start the year, they were 3-15 last year. So yes, it's incredible the way they started, and they have already matched last year's win total, but it's still very early in the season. Like you said, 2 of their wins against lesser opponents in our opinion. So again, if this team can keep this up, I mean, look what Rochester did last year. Started 6-0 and then fell off completely and almost didn't even make playoffs. And then they did, just to get absolutely demolished by the Bandits, which we love. But it's so early in the season. Yes, Albany looks good so far, but again, you're going to have to prove it a lot more than just 3 games early in the year to really be established as one of the top teams. Because right now, this early in the season, the top teams are still pretty much the top teams, even though, Bandits did lose to Albany, but they did that last year and then won it all. So,
yeah, I mean, even if you disagree with my rankings, talk to me about it. I love when people who read the articles or listen to the show or whatever, just even if you're not associated and listen to the podcast whatsoever, any kind of communications, it helps build the sport. So if you hate my topic and you disagree with the standings and want to call me an idiot, perfectly fine with it. Just have a normal conversation with me. We can go back and forth. I'm not going to insult you. I'm not mean. I mean, I am, but I'm not going to be mean on social media. I'll talk to you about it and explain where my position is, and I'll ask your position. So we'll have a normal conversation. It helps grow the sport, and I'm perfectly capable of having a normal conversation with people. I absolutely love it.
You're working on it.
I am. I love it when people just reach out and talk, and, hey, if you really think Albany's not ranked 8th, let me know why. And just don't come with a real argument and not just say, they're 3-0, they're at the top of the standings. I don't care. I really don't.
That's not how power rankings work.
Exactly. But I honestly, if you disagree with any of my topics, and I said that twice now, if you disagree with anything I say,
your opinions, is that the other word?
My opinions. That might be what I'm trying to do. If you think I'm an idiot, I am. You can't hurt my feelings. So bring it on. That's what I like to say. But Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this Friday show before we shut it down and close out the year 2023? Because when we I guess we'll be recording in 2023, but our episode will air on 2024. We're in the Twilight Zone or whatever you call it. I don't know. I didn't watch that show.
Why did you make the reference?
I don't know. That's part of it, isn't it? It wouldn't be recording in 2023, but it comes out in 2024. Isn't that considered the Twilight Zone?
That's not at all what the Twilight Zone is, but that's all right.
Oh, never mind. See? Idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this was necessarily one of our goals this year, but the opportunity to be in the press box for this game and to get to just be around other media and experience it up there while we wrap up 2023. I think it's a big thing for our podcast, big thing for you and me. I'm very excited about the opportunity and excited to bring back some new information that we have from that experience to this podcast, and an absolutely pretty epic way for us to close out 2023 and head into 2024.
Yeah, so thank you for everybody that's giving us this opportunity, this little podcast that started and continues to grow. So we're official media members as of tonight, Friday. We're going to be up in the press box to kind of break down and get a different. It'll be not just like the whole aspect of, and I don't want to go too much into it. Not just like the whole aspect of meeting other media members and seeing what this whole thing is about, the behind the scenes and everything, but just a different vantage point of watching the game as well from up top instead of the 100 level. That's another thing that I'm excited to see is, way up there, even above the 300 section, what it's going to look like and, all that kind of aspects, because we've never been up there. This is the first opportunity. I'm very excited for it and very thankful. We'll go over what we're thankful and everything for in the new year and next episode, but we keep saying it. This podcast is going to keep growing as people keep wanting more content, and this is another step in the right direction for us. And we're both excited and very thankful for the opportunity, and we will not let you down. We're idiots here, but we're professionals outside of it. We're not playing this up. I, at least speaking for me, I am a true idiot, but I can put on my serious and hat for a bit as I'm trying to close out this episode. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. We greatly appreciate it. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com, where you can see the controversial power rankings, and on Tuesday you can see Phil's breakdown and article on the Georgia Swarm and Buffalo Bandits, a game that's being taken place tonight. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.